I just can't believe it, man. Sorry I'm late once again. I know I can't, there's no excuse here, but honestly, mate, if you saw the way these trees were moving, they were just in my way, man.
Yeah?
Yeah, weird.
Yeah, how were the trees moving?
Oh, they were moving hella shady.
Right, okay.
Fantastic news. We have got our very first serial killer case today. And this one is in fact solved. And we're here to talk about Big Rodney.
Rodney Alcala, the dating game killer.
It was one of the most famous dating shows ever.
Looking back, it is chilling to realize that this iconic show would unknowingly feature a remorseless killer.
Talia Shapiro was an 8-year-old little girl walking to school back in 1968.
I will always remember that face at that door. Very evil face.
Between takes, he might find him skydiving or motorcycling. Please welcome Rodney Alcala. Rod, welcome. And it's time to meet a young lady for game number 1.
I'm sorry, but the title of this case just sounds cool.
Yep, 100%. Which means you should subscribe and turn on notifications right now for more cases like this every Monday, 6 p.m. Myself and Detective Freezy here will be solving cases, even the solved ones.
We're gonna resolve them to double check they got it right. Talk to me a little bit about him.
All right, born in 1943, currently 77 years old, convicted serial killer, known to have 8 victims, but it is believed that that number could go as high as 130.
Did you say 130?
130. This man was playing darts.
I'm not too sure if it goes up to 130, but we do have at least 8 that we 100% know Rodney killed.
Yeah, you know, during his time was even compared to Ted Bundy. I'm sure a lot of you guys know who he is. Good-looking fella. Also a murderer.
Yeah, he was a terrible person.
Is that Efron?
But yeah, okay, fine. Anyways, let's talk a little bit about his background. So Chip, this guy actually had an older brother and an older sister. He also had a younger sister as well. Now he's, you know, we want to give you guys the true background because a lot of the time these serial killers, what tends to happen is they are sometimes the product of their childhood.
Yes,
you know, they have some terrible childhood trauma, all this sort of stuff. But what's weird about this particular case is that his childhood, as far as we're aware, wasn't actually that bad. There wasn't anything crazy that stood out to us. I guess the one thing that was quite interesting is that it said that his father left the family subtly. When I first heard that, I mean, I thought, yeah, this is a case of dad's gone to get the milk and not come back. But what actually happened, and no joke, his dad said that he went to get cigs and never came back.
I just remixed it a little bit. And you gotta respect the creativity of that.
Yeah, he was there like, the milk one's a bit cliche, but do you know what? I'll say cigarettes this time. It is important to note that he was brought up in really good schools, like private schools, Catholic schools, and he was often described as like a kind, respectful boy. He had a pretty good upbringing, like, you know, he wasn't dirt poor.
Yeah.
Like I said, yes, he didn't grow up with a father figure, but ultimately, you know, besides that, everything was actually okay. When he was 11, his mum moved him and his 2 sisters all the way out to LA.
Yeah.
You know what I've noticed? The Menendez brothers as well, they moved out to
LA's a dangerous place, man.
Swear.
Messing up minds.
It is, it really is. Now, at the age of 17, Big Rodney joined up with the US Army, but he joined up as a clerk.
Okay.
So, yeah, he joined up there, but shortly after, he had a nervous breakdown, and so he left. Now, normal people would probably leave and just make their own way home via some form of transport. This guy decided to hitchhike his way all the way home.
Well, maybe he ran out of money, didn't have any money, possible, maybe.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah. But look, ultimately, he was diagnosed with antisocial personality disorder by a military psychiatrist and was honorably discharged. So, yeah, it wasn't great for him, but it is important to note that actually in the hospital, the psychiatrist at the hospital, not the military one, actually said it was much more severe than just a nervous breakdown.
So he had quite a few problems going on.
Yeah, especially early on. I mean, the geezer was what, like 17, early. You know, he's in his teens here, and you're already having like nervous breakdowns, things like that. Like, it's pretty tough.
Yeah.
But ultimately, he graduated from UCLA School of Fine Arts, and then he went to study film at New York University.
Let's talk about some of this guy's first known crimes. His initial crimes. It's all starting off 1963. Okay, he assaults a woman by hitting her over the head with a Coke ball. Not the average crime, but
no, I was gonna say this. It's the first of what gets progressively worse and worse. This particular case isn't about a geezer hitting a girl over the head with a Coke ball. It does get worse.
That's just a start. That's just a little bit of sauce.
Okay, talk to me. What was next? What was after that?
1968. Now, somebody actually witnessed this crime. He pulled up besides an 8-year-old girl called Tali Shapiro. Okay, and he tells her to get in the car. She's
danger.
She's thinking to herself, she doesn't know this guy, but he's saying he's a family friend. She's thinking, I have to respect my elders. So she actually gets into his car. Right.
Okay. So she gets into the car with Rodney, who essentially said that, hey, look, I'm a family friend. Like, don't worry. And she was raised being taught that she should respect her elders, right?
Yes. So now he tells the girl he needs to swing by his apartment, and she, in quotes here, I didn't know to fear people.
And then that's when he realized we had plenty of time, and he was going to swing by and show me a poster. I didn't know to fear people.
Fortunately, a citizen has seen this all happening and followed Rodney and Tali to the apartment. The citizens called the police. Now, Tali has told ABC as well that beyond this point, she doesn't remember anything. The police have turned up at the apartment and they think she's dead. There's clothes everywhere, blood everywhere. There's a steel bar across her neck. Things are, it's not looking good right now.
Yeah. And in fact, they actually claimed that she was definitely raped there and beaten as well. So, I mean, this is brutal stuff. And like, it's even grim to just sort of talk about this particular victim in the case and everything. But yeah, like you said, they found her. They thought that she was dead, but she was actually in a coma for about 32 days. And she ended up coming out of that just after that. So thankfully, she was alive. But I mean, that is pretty brutal.
Yeah,
like
pretty gruesome scene.
At the age of 8 as well.
The police actually found his university ID. It was under the name Rodney Alcala. It was for the UCLA in the photography department. Also in there, they found a lot of vulnerable photos of, young women and boys.
All that sort of just some twisted guy.
Yeah,
this guy was twisted.
Not great stuff. Anyway, Alcala actually evades arrest by going to New York to study film.
Okay, now it's important to know, at the time he goes, you're probably thinking, right, well, how does a bloke who's obviously wanted by the police at this point go across country and end up just studying at a different university? Obviously, we have to remember the time this was back in like 1977. It was a while back, and not only that, but he actually ends up changing his name. So he's gone from Rodney Alcala to John Berger. Now, this Berger is spelled B-E-R-G-E-R, so it's like Berger. Instead of burger, it's Berger.
Could have really got a better name.
Yeah, I wonder why he chose...
What about John Lemon?
Yeah, or John Sandwich.
That sounds silly.
Some would argue that a burger is a sandwich.
Really?
Yeah, I don't know. Anyways, that's a mystery for
Send those
another
people
one.
to prison as well.
Right, okay then. In 1971, he worked a counseling job in New Hampshire. Okay. Right, at a camp. And this time, in order to get this particular one, he then changed his name again, right?
Okay, so he's mixed up this time, but what to?
John Berger.
No, John Berger was the last name.
No, but he's changed it again, John Berger, but this time he realized he spelt burger wrong, so he put a U instead of the E. So it's now Burger instead of Berger.
He's a Big Mac.
He is. He's now a Big Mac. Yeah. He's upgraded from a cheeseburger to a Big Mac.
I'm like a quarter pounder.
No, bro. You're like one chicken select.
That is so rude. I'm at least a cheeseburger.
I'm a mozzarella stick.
You're better than that.
Yeah, thank you. Still in 1971, the FBI have gone and added Alcala, Rodney, to the top 10 most wanted fugitives list. Ooh. Now, at this point, what happens is in the US, you know, you'll start having, you know, pictures of their face in like, you know, local shops, things like that. Like the top 10 is put all around the place, and that actually ended up working because 2 children who attended his art camps, noticed his face on it and said, I know that bloke, I recognize him. Off the back of that, he was actually arrested in New Hampshire. Ooh. Happy days. He's been arrested. That was the location of where he had that art camp.
We've got our man.
Yeah, right? They've got him, and they brought him all the way back to LA to face charges of rape and attempted murder of Tali, which is obviously fantastic news. But there's a big but here.
It didn't all go to plan.
It didn't, and what ended up happening was actually Tali, the young girl, the victim of this horrible crime, was actually her parents decided to move to Mexico to put her in a safer environment. Look, like, can imagine that's very traumatic. You want to move, you want to get away from everything, right? But what the parents did say was that they didn't want their daughter to testify against Rodney. And, you know, the reason is up to the parents. You know, obviously at a young age, you know, going through that whole process again can be very damaging in terms of the long term. But ultimately, the prosecution now has a really weak argument, and they really struggled, and they couldn't actually nail him down for all that horrible stuff that was going on in that crime. So what ended up happening was he ended up agreeing to a plea deal, which had an indeterminate sentence, which means that there's no real set amount of time that he goes to prison for. Instead, the way it works is that every year he'll get a review, and depending on you know, whether he's been rehabilitated, things like that, they'll decide, he's okay to go back into society or whatever. The big problem here is this guy's clearly got a lot wrong with him, and some people claim that he was actually like a sociopath, and those people tend to be very manipulative. So in those sort of situations where they've got to convince like a board of people that he's actually much better, that's obviously going to be quite easy for someone that is, like we said, he's a smart guy, he's not stupid, right? And then not only that, he's a sociopath. Like, this guy's got a lot of problems, and he had no problem convincing this board that he was actually okay and ready to go back into society.
Oh, Lord. So after about 2.5 years in prison, after Alcala being a model prisoner, is what they said.
Really?
Yeah, he gets out.
How can a guy that's done all those sort of crimes and they go, yeah, he was a model prisoner?
Mate, they just switched just like that. Crazy. But anyway, gets out. 2 months later, he's already violated his parole. He's given marijuana to a 13-year-old girl. So, yeah.
The alarm bells are ringing.
Yeah.
Like, come on, guys. This guy hasn't even been out for 8 weeks, and he's already violated his parole by doing some dodgy thing.
And it sends him back to prison for another 2.5 years, by the way. So this is where the name Dating Game Killer comes into play. Rodney gets out of prison, and he somehow manages to swindle himself a little role on, you know, a dating show called Dating Game.
Thank you very much. Thank you. And welcome to the Dating Game.
Very creative. Like I said, mate, they were creative back in these days.
Yeah.
I mean, class that.
Anyway, so he goes on the show. The idea of the show, I'll give you a quick rundown, is basically, you know, a woman has to ask questions, you know, like 3 contestants, 3 males that she can't see.
Yeah.
In the end, Rodney...
So, what, like, imagine there's a barrier here, and you're asking, like, what's your favorite color?
It's like a blind show dating kind of thing. And in the end, Rodney, being the smooth talker that he is, to be honest...
The sociopath that this man is.
He's managed to actually win a tennis date with, you know, he's the winner. He wins a prize, gets a tennis date, and a trip to Magic Mountain.
Say hello to Rodney Alcala. Rodney, come on and say hello. Congratulations, Rod. You did it with the one answer. Well, as far as I can see, Cheryl and Rodney, it looks like the two of you may be involved in some sort of racket. So we're going to have you taped to the court. Oh, first you'll receive tennis lessons from expert Naomi Besa. Then it's off the Magic Mountain, one of America's greatest and most complete amusement parks, with plenty of excitement to challenge any daring dater.
That's not a bad date.
That's not bad at all.
I would love to go on a tennis date, and mate, you
not
get to
with
go
Rodney. I would love to go with you.
Okay, I would go with you as well.
Go with
maybe
you.
we should.
We should go together.
Go Magic Mountain.
I'll go Magic Mountain.
Yeah. All right. Will you hold my hand on the rides? At this point, you're probably thinking this date's going to go terribly wrong. Well, unfortunately for Rodney, Cheryl, the lovely contestant, ended up meeting up with Rodney backstage and said that she got terrible vibes from him.
Yeah.
Like, it was just all off. She wasn't feeling it at all, so she actually just rejected the date.
Yeah, like
she said, nah, like, you're weird.
The whole crew as well, everyone was getting bad vibes from the get-go straight.
I'll be perfectly honest with you, as a dating show, I would highly recommend people to go ahead and check someone's criminal background before going ahead and getting them on the show. Now, maybe because of the name changes, it might have been a little bit confusing, but it's safe to say, you know, do a little bit of research and maybe have someone that hasn't raped and beaten an 8-year-old person on a dating show. That's probably not a good start.
Yeah, like it's just a bit crazy.
Yeah.
A guy that was on the top 10 most wanted FBI list had just walked onto this dating show and gone, I'd love a date.
Yeah, I mean, okay, well, maybe his name doesn't pop up, but his picture has been in the top 10 most wanted.
Yeah.
Like, this is a serial killer case, so that means there were quite a few victims. Multiple victims. And let's talk a little bit about some of these victims here. Now, the first one we have is Jill Barcombe in November 10th, 1977.
Okay.
All right. Now, she ran away from home to start a new life in LA. I'm telling you, everyone just seems to move to LA and bad things are happening, man. But yes, she moves to LA and she was found beaten and strangled on a hillside really close to the Hollywood sign.
Okay.
Okay, and what's interesting is the fact that there was a serial killer back then called the Hillside Strangler. And so the police actually thought that it was the Hillside Strangler that had done this. So the case, once again, just went cold, right? But they found her body in a really bad way. In fact, that her brother actually said that she was completely unrecognizable, right? And this was some sadistic person doing this. It was really tapped.
Damn.
And like I said, the case just went cold.
Next victim, Georgia Wickstead, December 1977. She's a nurse who worked in cardiac care in Malibu. Now, she was found raped, beaten, strangled to death. Sounds similar to some of the other victims we spoke about earlier.
Yeah.
There was blood everywhere, the body was naked, and a handprint was actually found at the scene. But handprint couldn't be matched to anyone.
Pain.
You know, it's always the case,
Look,
right?
it's quite clear that this guy has, like, you know, the strangling seems to be things, you know, raping people seems to be things, and it's just like that's his MO right there.
He's got
it's
way.
pretty rough and very violent. So yeah, it's not great. It's important to note as well, you know, with the Jill, she was 18. Now, this victim, Georgia, she was 27. So we're not talking about underage people here. These are people all overage, which is just quite interesting considering, you know, obviously the first person was Tali, then he was selling marijuana to a 13-year-old. So it's just a bit of a switch.
Seems like he will just target anyone. Age range.
Yeah. There was no particular age range here. And
but the handprint, though, there's always these little details that just never go anywhere, and you're just like,
pain.
That could be it.
Yeah, that could be it. Anyways, we've got another victim, Charlotte Lamb.
Oh, okay.
32 years old, and this one was actually done in 1978. Now, she was a legal secretary living in Santa Monica, and she was actually found in the laundry room of an apartment complex, right? And again, same thing, raped, beaten, strangled, but she was strangled with a shoelace, which is pretty rogue. I guess maybe that was the only thing he had there. But yeah, again, she was strangled. But what's weird is it wasn't like anyone's apartment complex. Like, it wasn't her apartment. It was just like a random one that she had no connection to.
Wow. Like, in a laundry room, that's a place where they could have been caught.
Yeah, exactly.
Like,
and this... Yeah, well, easily. This is an apartment complex. Like, it wasn't.
Anybody could have walked in to dry their undies.
Wasn't super private, but then again, same with the Hillside one. Like, you're out on the Hollywood sign. Like, this guy really doesn't care too much about it.
With it. Well, there's no CCTV. Well, probably not any CCTV going about as much.
Certainly not as much as there is nowadays. You got like a camera on every corner these days. But yeah, it was just a bit of a weird one. It was also important to note that she actually had her arms folded behind her back, and they said she was almost like posed. There, you know, she
like, was he trying to show like the police, like, look at me? Yeah,
well, that's the thing. Like, you remember, he went to uni at UCLA, and he was in the photography. So, you know, there's like the photography element here.
Yeah, could be matching up.
Exactly. So, yeah. Anyways, talk to me about the next one here, Jill.
Next victim, Jill Marie Parento, 1979, June 14th, 1 year after Charlotte Lamb. She was found strangled in her apartment. Same kind of vibe, same thing going on.
Yeah.
Not looking good.
It really isn't, and it's like, you know, these are the ones that they know of. Just think about. Remember at the beginning we said there was between 8 and 130.
Yeah.
Like, that is insanity. So moving on from there, you then had Robin Samso, and ultimately this was the victim here that sort of unlocked this case a little bit and really helped them out here, because there was quite a bit of evidence that was left behind that really helped them out. Robin Samso was a 12-year-old girl from California. Now, on the 20th of June, she didn't turn up for ballet practice, right? And what happened here was that her friend earlier on in the day said that she'd been approached by a man who wanted to take photos of them, and a neighbor, or, you know, someone close by had seen that, and as she went up to, you know, go and speak to the man, the guy just disappeared, right? And so ultimately, what ended up happening was that neighbor created a sketch of what the man looked like, and it was very similar to Rodney. And what ended up happening was Rodney's parole officer looked at it and went, "That's Rodney Alcala."
Oh, the parole officer.
So
clocked him.
Yeah, clocked him straight up.
Good stuff.
And what ends up happening was that during a search of the family house, they end up finding some keys belonging to some storage, right? And in this storage locker, they found the girl's earrings. The young girl, the 12-year-old.
Robin's earrings.
Robin Samso's earrings.
Okay.
Found them. Not only did they find the earrings in this locker, but they found a whole catalogue of photographs of these women.
Dodgy ones.
Yeah, dodgy ones. You know, you can only imagine what sort of photos these look like with the sort of victims, and we've already described how they've been killed and things like that. This was not a pretty sight whatsoever. And not only that, but these photos took so long to be identified, you know, the people in the photos. So as, you know, they went and they had their trial, which we'll get onto in a second, but during that whole thing, they're still just trying to identify the people in these pictures, reaching out to other people, unsolved cases, being like, is this them?
This has all led to his arrest in 1979 without bail. He's gone to trial in 1980. He's tried, convicted, and sentenced to death, but it was overturned by the California Supreme Court as the jurors were improperly informed of his prior sex crimes.
Could you imagine that? This guy managing to get his thing overturned. But fear not, Chip, because in 1986, the second trial, it was nearly exactly the same, except this time, the good news is that they admitted his previous criminal record testimony and was again sentenced to death. He was convicted and sentenced to death again. So thankfully, he didn't get off any lighter here. Look, the guy was given the death penalty, and just because of, you know, a little mistake with some of his prior sex crimes, it didn't change anything. And
this man is going down. He's going down.
He's going down.
Major advances in forensics in more recent times have led to DNA evidence that has tied him to all those California murders. We've got, you know, Barcombe, Wickstead, Lamb, Parento. Yeah, and they've combined all 5 of those, put a motion forward to combine all 5 charges to get him done.
I mean, I'm not going to lie, that is, that's ideal.
Yeah,
and this is what I'm saying. That's what we're talking. Modern day technology has helped save so much of this stuff.
I didn't want to sit here for 45 minutes to not see this man go down.
Yeah, exactly. Imagine this was unsolved. That would drive me crazy. But so in that as well, he actually decided to represent himself in court, which, if anyone knows, that is a very risky move, and
he's got
not wise.
What was it, 130 something IQ? Yeah. Maybe he just thought, you know what, I'm gonna do this.
Well, do you know what his defense was?
What?
That he couldn't remember doing it.
That's fair.
Did you do it?
Didn't happen,
Couldn't tell you, mate. Didn't happen.
Didn't happen, because I don't remember,
Did you steal the cookie from the cookie jar, Chip?
That was so weird that you were thinking about the cookie, because I was thinking about a cookie. Did I steal a cookie?
Really? Yeah.
No, I didn't, because I don't remember it. And that
can't nail him if he doesn't remember
mystery.
it. We've got Tali. Remember her from way back?
Of course.
Yeah. Now that we're fast forward, you know, this is in 2003.
Yeah.
We actually had Tali come forward and actually decide to testify.
Herself, yeah.
Yeah. So because now she's older, she can make the decision for herself.
Yeah.
Before, her parents said they didn't want her to go through it and testify,
Yeah.
which obviously was a massive failure for the prosecution's case way back then.
And then he got to go on and
he did all this stuff, but at this point now, I think Tali says, right, okay, for myself, I'm going to go forward, I'm going to testify, and that massively helped the case because it pushed for the death penalty, and he was back on death row in March 2010.
Prosecutors, you know, they claimed that he would actually strangle the victims, you know, let them pass out, and then the crazy bit here is wait for them to actually wake back up before killing them. Like,
that is so weird.
That's pretty sick and twisted.
If you guys ever think, you know, you have a problem, listen to the list that this bloke has, right? So a psychiatrist expert at his trials claimed that he had narcissistic personality disorder, borderline personality disorder, malignant narcissism, and psychopathy and sexual sadism comorbidities.
Lord have mercy. Can I spell most of those words? Probably not.
Mate, imagine you go to a psychiatrist, they're like, yeah, okay, so there's a few things wrong with you, mate. If you don't mind waiting 45 minutes while I read out the list.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, so it's safe to say this guy had a lot of problems.
And I mean, when we were talking about how he lets his victims come back to life, could be seen as a little bit of a hero complex. That's what they said. You know, he gets off on the idea of, you know, saving his victims, and then he just brutally murders them.
Yeah, so it's like, oh, look, I can bring you back to life, but I'm in charge of your fate. Yeah, like a next level power trip, really.
Yeah. Do you remember those photos that we were talking about earlier?
The ones from the locker?
Yes. Now, they actually led to a revelation, the murder of Christine Ruth Thornton, okay? So she's gone missing in 1977, and, she was strangled. Just same MO. Her sister recognized her from the photo portfolio. And her body was actually identified super recently, 2015.
That is, I mean, it's in a way it's great that obviously there's, you know, there's maybe some closure here, or, you know, just getting a bit more information about this, but
that's like we said earlier, there could be a lot more victims out there that we have no idea about.
Monique Hoyt was another person that was identified from the photos as well, and she said that she came forward and during a photo shoot she was knocked unconscious and was sexually assaulted.
Wow, but she's actually survived the encounter.
She wasn't killed, and you don't know why, but you know, she's obviously very fortunate in a weird way that she wasn't killed. A lot of people were, but obviously still going through what she went through is absolutely horrific. And unfortunately, Pamela Lamson was another victim, and she was actually assaulted and killed, and DNA evidence was so degraded and messed up and, you know, unusable.
Couldn't make a match.
Yeah, so they couldn't get a match, which was a bit unfortunate.
Very unfortunate. Another victim, Cornelia Crilly. She lived in Manhattan. Her family couldn't find her. The police have gone searching for her. They find her in an apartment, raped and strangled by nylon stockings. Like we spoke about, he did the shoelace. He used the shoelace.
Yeah, he seems to just use whatever. The steel
bar.
Yeah, like the guy just used what
but
I guess.
It always
was
seems to be a strangling.
Yeah, it's true. Not only that, but we have one last one. Ellen Hoover, right? New York. Okay, and on July 15th, she goes missing. And what ends up happening is the detectives find in her calendar that she had an appointment with John Berger for a photography session.
Yeah, photography, right?
Exactly, remember that.
We're on to
now, finally, the FBI have made the dots, put the string, the little red string from one to another, and they've realized that Rodney Alcala is the same person as John Berger.
Crazy. I could have told him that. I got it right here.
And that appointment was on the day that she went missing. So obviously something was connecting here. The police tried to actually have John Berger take a polygraph test, which is just a lie detector test. And he said, nah, don't want to take one. And then ultimately, because it was all just circumstantial evidence, they just had to let him go, which is a big stinker, unfortunately, for the police. But yeah, look, a year later, her body was found by the Rockefeller estate in New York.
Ooh.
Okay. And what ended up happening when that information came out, another model had come forward and said, yeah, that's where John Berger had taken me previously for a photo shoot.
Ooh.
So it all really did line up.
That was just like adding up, you know. This
exactly.
is the guy.
And once again, this was all because of these photos. These photos were so key. 2 of these cases, after the photos, ended up tagging on another 25 years onto his sentence.
Deserved.
I mean, that's a dub.
Good night, John. Rodney Berger. whatever you want to go
Burger
by.
and burger.
Yeah.
So it is what it is. But yeah, I mean, that's where we're at right now. He's 77 years old. He's still in prison. There's hopefully no chance of this man coming out.
Oh, we hope not.
I don't care if he's a model prisoner or not. He ain't coming out. Don't let him come out, because if he does, then we could be on the list, lad.
He's probably 77. He's probably going to pop his clogs in the prison.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
most likely.
mean, yeah, it's rough. But yeah, I mean, as you guys know, this was a pretty graphic case. It's a grim case. It's not nice for anyone. But look, ultimately, he's behind bars. And that is the story of the dating game killer. So, as always, Chip, what do they need to do?
You need to subscribe, turn on those notifications. You will not want to miss
Press the bell.
an episode. Mystery Mondays, they are at 6 p.m. every single week, so hit that bell.
See you guys in a bit.